Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome to this week's recap video and happy Mother's Day to all of you moms out there. Aaron is back with us.
Yeah.
Last week he was down for the count. He got
Yeah.
what we all had. So it was Benjamin first and then Samantha and then me and then Aaron got it. I was kind of hoping that you would, like you stayed strong for so long.
I know. It's kind of just inevitable when you see the whole, like one by one, everybody
Yeah.
go down. But yeah, I'm back and feeling much better.
So we've had a really fun, exciting last few days. Oh, also, I did want to thank all of you who placed orders on our website. We ran a Mother's Day sale. There was free shipping over $50, and a lot of you guys ordered stuff. So I'm excited about that, and I'm really thankful for all of you who placed orders. And I don't think there's any announcements for this week. So we are going to just jump into the first video, which was community tree planting project and a little planting at home. And that day when we were planting the trees was the morning I started to go downhill in my sickness. Like I can mark it with projects.
Sure.
And then I finished the video, like 2 days later.
Oh, really?
I think I had 2 days off and then and I was still sick, but I did it.
Oh.
I think I did some planting in the morning because I thought I can rally, I can do this.
Yeah.
And anyway, we got it done, but we planted 5 greenspire linden trees at a local church. There's a kind of a push for trees in our area, which is right up Aaron's alley.
Yeah. Okay. So there's a guy on the city council who we've been friends with forever. And in fact, his son, Luke, is working for us. But he applied for this grant that is going to, I don't know. It's a bunch of money that the government has for planting trees. So
We can get behind that for sure.
yeah, great. I guess it was like really difficult to get the grant, and but he was able to secure it. And so anyway, it probably would be like maybe a number of years before, because whenever the government gets involved, it's like, well, we got to do a study and we got to, do all these things. So anyway, that'll happen first. And then,
Didn't we donate those trees though?
yeah,
We bought those trees.
We did. We paid
Yeah.
for those, but you said there's a push.
Oh yeah, the push
So I was
is the
just kind of
grant.
responding to the fact
Sorry.
that
Yeah.
there is a push among the community to plant more trees. And I'm happy. I mean, we're happy to donate trees.
Oh,
and, whenever that arises. Basically, if there's ever a spot where like a lot of people use, then, I'd be happy maybe to plant trees in people's yards too. I almost feel like if we could, I don't know how you organize this, where you say basically only front yards, because it's like, if I'm going to be donating trees, I want it to be visible by everybody and like street trees in a way. Does that make sense?
Oh,
It's
yeah.
like those
Well, you're
neighborhoods
providing
where,
shade for cars that park there, or
Yeah.
I don't know.
Right.
You're
It's
making
like-
the street less hot.
yeah. And so I want to somehow do that, but it's like, how do you vet people, and how do you make sure, one, that people are going to take care of the trees? You probably can't.
No.
But two, you also have to make sure, like, okay, look, I really only care about my town. We have lots of towns really close to us, and it's like, well, that's somebody else's town that,
Yeah.
they can make their town different. But so anyway, but it feels a little bit weird to be like, well, no, I'm not going to do it for you. I only want to do it for this person. But the idea is kind of like, well, it needs to be a place where lots of people would see it or be able to use the shade.
Which is why, like, the church that we planted the trees at isn't the church that we go to, but they're planting trees like at the community college and elementary schools. And this particular church has a baseball field and like a soccer/football field, a gymnasium, and they allow lots of different people to use it. So it's enjoyed and used by many, many people.
Yeah.
So we thought this is perfect. So we did plant those, and then came home and planted some things here. I think I planted the 2 boxwoods. I'm trying to remember because it feels like a long time ago. 2 boxwoods in front of the Hartley and some other things. I think there was like 4 or 5 things that I planted. Norma said, "Hi Laura, my name is Norma. I live in Zone 9A in San Antonio, Texas. So my question is this: when you say plants are a Zone 9, does that mean that 9 covers 9A and 9B? Yes. I'm not sure what to plant that would come back annually. So you would just want to make sure that whatever you're planting falls within your growing zone. I mean, there's not a tremendous amount that wouldn't grow in a Zone 9 except for like super tropical things. What I think that you would probably need to pay attention more to is like the higher end of the zone. So a lot of plant tags will say like Zone 5 through 9 or zone 2 through 7. If it's a plant that's at zone 2 through 7, you could grow it as an annual, but it won't be productive. It needs a certain amount of cold hours in order to be productive, if that makes sense.
There's also a couple other factors that just because it says it's in your zone range doesn't mean it will actually grow
Sure.
in your area. You know,
Yeah.
like we technically rhodies and azaleas and stuff like that are within our zone range, but they don't like our water or our soil because it's too high pH, too high alkaline. So there's other factors besides that. So just because it says it's a 9 doesn't
Mean
it might work, but
Right.
it may not as well.
Right. Yippee said, how come you didn't use an auger for the tree planting? Because they make kind of a mess and we want it to be as tidy as possible in somebody else's.
Augers aren't for everything. It's not
Right.
it's not a thing that you can use in every application.
Well, and I don't even use them every time I plant here. If I know that if I'm planting around the pond, I'm most likely not going to use the auger unless it's a distance away because there's lines everywhere, like the little lines for the lights. There's tubes and liner, and if I go with a shovel, I can go slower, and it's not going to tear something apart. If it's going to do any damage, it'll be very minimal, as opposed to an auger. I mean, you get going with one of those, I can get away from you a little bit quicker. So anyway, we didn't down there because we didn't want to make a mess.
And the trees are kind of too big.
Well, you could aug like 4 holes or 5 holes or whatever.
I could have driven the tractor down there, but I would have had to drive it on the grass, and I didn't know like when the last time they watered, and like I can drive the Bobcat on grass that hasn't been watered in a little while. But like if it just watered the night before, it probably would cause ruts.
Yeah. Chris said, I've been following you guys for a couple of years now, and you've inspired me to start my own gardens. That makes me incredibly happy to hear. Have you ever considered doing design consultations or something similar? I can't tell you how many times I buy plants and try to imitate the style or feel of your gardens, but it never ends up looking right. You know what? That's the one thing I do not like doing at all. So no.
One of many things you don't like doing.
What do I not like doing?
Public speaking?
Oh yeah, I don't like to public speak. I don't like big events.
You're an introvert.
Yes.
So like you like one-on-one conversations
Yes.
with people, but crowds, there's a few things you don't like.
Yeah, well, yeah. I think they're fairly normal, though.
Yeah,
I mean,
I
I think
think
most people don't like to get up in front of people and speak, right?
Yeah.
Like that's a small group of people who will do that. I just like to be home. I like to be home, and I like to be in my garden, and I don't like to design other people's spaces.
Well, one of the problems with that is that you design something, and the design and then the actual application of it, like when things go in the ground, don't you think
Wildly
you
different.
have to be there?
Yeah.
You have to be the one planting them. Otherwise, stuff never gets put in the right spot exactly the way that you planned it. And sometimes 6 inches actually makes the difference.
Yeah, it can, for sure. Well, I'm looking at the front area and all the boxwoods, and I keep thinking of different things. Like we did a mock-up sketch this winter of an idea that we can do. I need to go lay the boxwoods out to see if I like that, but I'm almost thinking I need to think bigger. I need to think bigger for that space. But see, that's what happens is with my own spaces and at the rate that I move, I usually can get it fairly close to right, or what I feel like for us is right for our space, because I have all the time to do that. And we can mess with things and, like you say, move it 6 inches this way, and it makes a difference. But in other people's spaces, you give them a plan, and then hopefully it's okay. Hopefully it all pans out and it looks okay. I don't know. It's just too much pressure. I don't like that. Brenda said, are you at all concerned about inhaling all the dust from the wind plus all the fertilizer you spread, that it could affect your throat? I'm sure it could. I do try to stand upwind. I actually hold my breath a lot when I'm pouring in fertilizer. I'm like, and then I wait for it to kind of go away because I'm sure that could affect, one could probably.
Yeah, we don't really breathe it in. Like the fertilizer, don't have our head in there like taking deep breaths.
I know, but it probably spreads further than you think in the air, quicker than you think.
Yeah, but we also hold our breath longer than maybe people think too.
Yeah, that's
like we're not breathing it. Like I can hold my breath for 20 or 30 seconds without too much trouble.
Sure.
And I do every time that we're spreading fertilizer or whatever. Like I always am.
I usually I was even thinking about the dust yesterday because I planted up an annual bed and there was a bunch of holes and there was a slight breeze, and I poured the first hole and I noted which direction the powder was going, and then I move in the direction that it's not.
Yeah.
So I can figure out what area I need to start in and how I can move to where it's not hitting my legs as I'm pouring it, because I don't want it all over my pants either.
Yeah.
And then one day, super windy day, I was reaching into the bag and grabbing fertilizer and placing it down in the hole instead of pouring. And then later that day I was like, oh my goodness, it stinks. Like I stink. What
Yeah.
in the world? And then I realized like, oh, it's my sleeve because
Oh.
I had reached down in the bag and it just had like hit the very top
Oh, sure.
opening. So anyway, I had to go shower up after that. That's not a pleasant smell when it's on your clothes. Elsa said, I have hostas and would like to take a piece to plant in another place. My question is, could I divide now? You can pretty much divide. I mean, there's ideal times for everything, right? But you can, yes, you can dig it up, divide it, replant, just keep it really moist. Proud Mama said, I have a question about biotone. I see you putting a lot of it in the holes. Can you not overdo it? Not really. It's a slow feed organic fertilizer. It would be incredibly difficult to overdo it with any of the tone fertilizers.
If you did a big pile and didn't like stir it up,
I said it'd be hard.
yeah, you'd have to be kind of a like not follow the instructions
Sort of person.
kind of a person.
Like to the extreme.
Yeah, like if you had a pile of it and you did not mix it at all in the soil,
Like if you planted your plant right in the middle of the pile of biotone.
yeah, then
And no soil, that could possibly be bad. I don't think anybody would be
No,
doing that,
probably
though.
not.
Brittany said, love that you decided to let the chickens free range. It's fun to see them. Question, have you ever considered a magnolia tree in your landscape? To my memory, I've not heard you mention having one, but I could be wrong. I planted a few and recently became a little obsessed with them. Yeah, magnolias can be beautiful, and we do have quite a number of them in our area because I think when people see them at garden centers or whatever, when they're in bloom, they want to plant them because they're so showy. But the problem with our area here is that most of the time when they're blooming out in the spring, it gets really cold and you'll see blooms for like a day and then they'll freeze and they turn brown and mushy and just fall to the ground in a huge mess. And so it's very rare. This year was a pretty good year for the magnolia trees, but first year in 15 years, it's been good.
Probably has.
Yeah.
I cannot remember because it's something that we talk about every year.
Yeah.
About like, should we plant a magnolia tree? And then, we go through the spring and then just see all the, not really our neighbors, but like there's houses nearby that have them. And we're like, see, that's why we don't do it.
Yeah.
Because they just look brown and nasty.
Yeah, and they are such a mess on the ground, like a soggy mess on the ground. I just look at it thinking, I'm so glad I don't have one of those in our yard. Not because I don't think they're beautiful when they're in a space where they will actually be beautiful, but that's why we don't have any. Sandy said, the trees at the church are so beautiful. They will certainly transform the space. Question, you mentioned treating ash trees with a systemic treatment for borers. What would you recommend? You may not need it in your area if you do not have ash tree borers. So that's something I would check on first. Do not treat your trees unnecessarily. In our area, we do have borers and they will attack ash trees. So most people will not plant them. We have 2 that are old in our landscape and each of them have borer damage in them because at some point in their lifespan, they were probably not treated. We treat them every year. We use a bonide tree and shrub drench, and it is a imidacloprid-based product, which a lot of people are scared of.
It's really kind of the only thing that people use.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, is there really
I
much
don't know
else?
I don't know of anything else.
I think imidacloprid is kind of like
Yeah.
the thing people use to.
Yeah. We don't ever
borers.
spray imidacloprid. It's only something that we apply to the trees and shrubs that are susceptible to borers. And it's something that you pour around the base, water it in, and your plant takes it up. So you just want to be careful about timing on some things. Lilacs and willows and birch trees for us are the other things we have to treat. And we wait till after bloom time to treat them. And so I feel like if you hit it right and apply it at the right time, I mean, it's the only way we can have those types of things.
Some people have to put it on their grass.
A system and imidacloprid?
Yeah.
Are you serious?
It's on the label. It's on the label for how to spread it on grass. I think things like armyworms and stuff more in the south.
Really?
Yeah.
I was not aware of that.
Yeah, isn't
That's
that crazy?
Yeah. I'm thankful we don't have to do that.
Yeah, it's nice that there's only a few trees that
Yeah.
that we have to put it on.
Yeah. Okay, next video is planting 6 beautiful evergreens. That was a really fun project because planting evergreens to me is one of the best investments you can make in your garden space. I feel like it's the best investment.
Correct.
Yeah. And we had some beautiful ones. We had some that went by the pond area. I had one that I threw in the heap. I guess I was replacing things. So we had to replace 2 boxwoods that had died and a pine that was pretty much it was at the end. And as I was pulling those things out, I was just loading them in the trailer and I had this little ground cover juniper. It was small. and one of the trees must have laid over the top of it, and I forgot about it. And anyway, I had to go back out there and fish it out of our pile later. But it was just a fun one to do because there were some little, scabby looking things that needed to be replaced, and it feels good when you get those things done. Love and Lavender said, will the pink petticoat columbine grow in full shade? I don't know that it would. I mean, it probably would do it, but it probably wouldn't be super productive in the bloom department. Ours gets a little bit of filtered sun through the day, and it seems to do really well with that. Now I've got 2 full flats of it to plant out, and I'm kind of thinking, where do I put this stuff? So I think I'm going to find a location out in the south garden that gets a little shade from an evergreen or something like that in the afternoon. And I'm hoping that will be a good area for it. The Gardens and Graveyards channel said, question, this is a segue from what you are doing in this video, but I would really love to know, how do you, aka Erin and your crew, keep the gravel around the Hartley and any other place that is not driveway looking good? Aside from spraying for weeds, how do you keep it from settling? Over the years, soil and pine needles and water and walking all cause my gravel walkways to settle, and I have fabric under it all, but I end up bringing in more gravel. I was wondering if you do anything like that for your driveway with pulling the gravel up and letting the soil sift below. I assume I could use a rake to pull it up. That's heavy work. I'm hoping maybe you have a trick that you want to share. I wish I did. So areas like greenhouse, raised bed garden, parterre, around the Hartley, we put landscape fabric underneath all that gravel. So there's no dirt under there to surface. And we've never had to bring in new gravel into any of those areas.
No, I wonder if this person is in an area that gets a lot more rain.
Could be.
Also, who maybe gets more of a freeze-thaw cycle. That kind of causes the ground to shift a little bit more than we get. I don't know.
Yeah, that's interesting. And then like pine needles, I mean, stuff that falls on top of it's definitely that we'd get that, but we just rake it up with that Fiskars shrub rake works really well, or you blow it. You use a blower, that works even better because that'll pick up all the light stuff and your gravel will stay down.
I would think, if you wanted to rehab it, if you put down like a road mix base and then did the fabric and then did your rocks, I would think it would stay. But again, I don't live in other areas that get like a lot of rain or a lot of snow.
Sure.
Or get really cold. So I don't, kind of hard to speak to.
Right.
We just happen to be lucky, I guess.
Yeah. Bridget Dwyer said, do you and Erin have a goal of a particular number of trees to plant each year? Everything's looking so wonderful. Thank you. I don't think we have a specific goal. It's just
we
like
shoot from the hip.
The more the merrier is kind of the goal.
Yeah.
I guess. Ray said, when you plant a tree that is staked in its nursery can, should you leave the stake when you plant it in the ground? If so, how long until you can remove it? I think it depends on the tree. We planted a locust tree recently that did have a stake.
I took it off immediately.
Yeah, Erin took it off, and then we realized how much of a bow it had. But honestly, I know that day we were like, why? Why did you remove the stake, But I think the staking that you did on it was better. Oh. It was more corrective, and it looks really good now.
Yeah.
It almost, maybe give it one more month, and I bet you we can remove the stakes.
Sure.
Because it's so young, and it's so,
Yeah.
So I don't know. I guess it just depends on the tree that you have, how flexible it is, how young it is. The younger the tree will need more support, more likely. So, you could leave it on that growing season and then take it off for the next one, just to be safe. Teresa said, are you worried about the pine cones because it's planted near the pond? Not really. No. There's a lot of other things like string algae that's more of a worry than the pine cones ever will be, probably. Yeah. Well, there's always going to be debris. Leaves, pine cones, possibly, whatever the wind brings in. We have some things coming this week, though, to help.
Yeah, tilapia.
We
put in 9 or 10 tilapia. Apparently, they just eat algae. It's so funny because even Greg is like, this is crazy. Like the issues that you guys are dealing with, first year ponds are a lot of work, but your guys' pond is...
It's like the trifecta of bad things.
Well, he's wondering if there's extra phosphorus, I think is what he said, in the rocks that were used because they're local rocks.
Right.
And, he's a Midwest company.
Yeah.
They do ponds everywhere. I mean, there's an aquascape guy in, just 45
But even
minutes
Chris
down the road.
hasn't seen
yeah.
what we're dealing with.
Right. And so our particular rocks came from Weiser, which is even farther from Boise. But they're local. It's 20, 25 minutes away. So anyway, yeah, who knows? But maybe the tilapia will help.
And I'm confident that it will balance eventually. We had it pretty good last year before we tore it apart and added, more than double of what was currently there. So we took it back down to square one. So there is that. There's that. There's no shade. There's high phosphorus, possibly rocks.
I've talked to several different people. There was a gal that came through recently. That was looking at the Hartley, and she owns a garden center in Boise. And we were just looking at the pond, and she was like, we put a pond in like 20 years ago, and we had a major algae issue the first like year and a half. And she goes, and then like it wasn't an issue. She was like, just be patient. And like, don't stress out over what it looks like now. And so
when I go out there, like I would like for it to be clear, but it's not like eating me alive,
No,
it's not stressing me
either.
out.
No.
Because I feel like both Chris and Greg they're just bending over backwards to help.
Yeah.
And like educate us too on what we need to be using, how often we need to be using it.
Chris has been so helpful, and he will not send me an invoice.
Chris, send us an invoice. We're just going to start sending you checks just randomly. That's the fun part about this whole project. Like I feel like I haven't ever been involved in a project like with the people that we've worked with Aquascape.
Yeah.
Like they are just... Like all of the contractors that have been here are such neat people. They're so wonderful.
Yeah.
And it's been such a fun thing to connect with these people and like create relationships with them. And they get to do the coolest stuff like Ed going to South Africa and building this massive, I don't know if you follow Ed the Pond Professor, but you should. And a lot of the people, the contractors that were here, they've been going from time to time, and like they'll spend a couple weeks down there helping, and they like bring each other in on all these really cool projects together, and they've created like this really cool network. So that has been really fun.
Yeah.
I think that's probably a highlight for me.
Sure.
So
what's that Africa project? Like how many acres is it?
I don't know. It's I don't know if
isn't it like 400,000 acres? Like a preserve of some kind?
Yeah.
Not the pond, obviously, just the whole property.
Well, I probably have to go back through Ed's post because he shares quite a lot of the project, but it's crazy.
Yeah.
Like I would love to go see it as much as I hate to fly and all of that. That would be a destination spot for sure. Jessica said, speaking of your mom, I just love her. She's just so sweet. She is. She's a good one. Any plans on showing us your parents' garden this spring? Well, we did a couple projects there this past week. It wasn't like a full-on tour. Tours are a little bit, I don't like want to put that on people very often because tours can be intimidating. And you feel like you have to, and I know my mom, and she'd feel like, okay, well, I need to plant this and this and this and make this spot look better. And I don't want to make people feel like that. I am heading out there today, though, to do some planting after we're done here. So you'll get to see a little bit more. MLD said, have you ever planted a dappled willow? I bet it would be beautiful on your property. I love dappled willows. They are beautiful. I don't know why we don't have any. Yeah, we should. They have like a pink, white, and green sort of vibe in their leaves. They're real pretty. Mrs. Reed said, would that tree cast too much shade on the berry beds once it's matured? I don't think so because it'd be the morning part of the day. Morning, yeah. That sounded weird coming out of my mouth, but morning shade, and then they'll get, full on afternoon sun. It'll be fine. Slane Design said, can I get perennial cornflower, Centurio montana, to rebloom by pruning or deadheading? I'm trying to remember, but I do think that we sheared it back like midsummer in my parents' garden, and it would come back and rebloom. I don't have any here. It always just makes me a little bit nervous. Like maybe if I found a spot where it'd be okay if it ran around. It's such a pretty plant. Jack Wilkinson said, are you the garden center's biggest client? Not even close.
No,
not even close. And my mom is super great. She calls me or texts me every time she puts in a new order and says, hey, I'm ordering from this place. Do you have any specific needs or things that you want? And I do try to order anything that needs to be larger quantity. I try to order it prior so that it doesn't come out of their inventory. And things like that.
I'm fascinated by the amount of people that I see in comments that it feels to me like they think that we are like the biggest gardeners that have ever existed. But if you've been in the industry, you know that there's like lots of people that don't have YouTube channels, but that literally get truckloads of plants.
Yeah.
And it's just, that's a normal thing for them. But like, they don't share it. They're not very public, probably because they might get shamed online if, people think it was excessive. Yeah, it's like, well, here we are,
bring it,
whatever.
Bring it, yeah.
But I think some people are a little, timid to share details
or they
like
just,
that.
it's their passion and they just want to keep it their hobby and keep it like more of a private. That's how I used to be.
But if you own a garden center, it's like you've got some big spenders. There's some people that come through that order lots of stuff.
Oh, I remember there would be specific customers that would come in and I would just drop whatever I was doing. And it was like I was there. Like, I would just follow them around with we call them, they're URCOs. It's a handwritten receipt. And they'd just be like, I would like that, like $1,600, $1,800 fountain. There's, 5 of these huge trees that are $500 a piece, and you just... I mean, it was crazy. Yeah. It was fun though, because not everybody does that. Sure. And it was more rare. Like it wasn't every day people were coming in and spending that. But when they did, it was just like, oh, how fun must this be, for this person? Because I, at that time, wasn't able to do that.
Yeah. But you wanted to.
But it was fun. Like I was living vicariously through this person. Like, oh, this garden's probably just the most amazing thing. And so they do have a lot of customers like that. And we've got like a lot of little communities around us. And a lot of people come over from Boise, McCall, things like that. They come to the garden center to shop. And there's people of all different kinds, different budgets, stuff like that around. So next video was planting Evelyn roses in my parents' garden. So I explained in the video how it happened, but I ended up with 9 Evelyn roses in my possession. And I didn't really have a place to put 9. It's a lot because they get 5 by 4.
You bought 9?
No, I bought 6, and then my mom. So I bought 6, 3 for me, 3 for my mom, but I didn't tell my mom because it was meant to be a Mother's Day gift. And I didn't realize that she was also able to order Evelyn roses in the garden center. So I have like these 6 on order. And then she surprised me one day and showed up at the house with 3 Evelyn roses as a thank you for something. And so I ended up with 9. And I had already gotten my mom a different Mother's Day gift because I thought, well, she's got access to Evelyn roses now. Yeah. Like it's not going to be this super special
at least this year
thing.
It seems like those kinds of things are up and down.
But now she has 7 in her garden. We planted 7 of my 9 out in her garden, and it was just fun. We did some weeding, some planting, and Joanne said, could the parsley at Susan's house be harvested and dried? Yes, I'm sure it could be. She's got a huge patch of parsley out there. From last year. JBD said, I noticed you and your mom both don't have any dogs. Is it because you think they would damage your gardens? I'm just curious. We don't because of that, largely. And we just didn't. We've been talking about it a little bit more because I think Samantha would.
She would love a dog.
She's an animal lover, like big time animal lover.
I can see us getting a dog soon. But your parents have always had dogs.
They've always had dogs except for when they lost Tessa. She was a long coat German Shepherd. She was the best dog. And it kind of like, well, it was hard. That was hard when they lost her.
You know what? I think the profile picture that we've used since like the beginning of your face, I think that
I was holding Tessa.
You're holding Tessa, but it's cropped into your face. So you can't actually see.
Right.
I'll put it on the screen though to show like what the full, I think I'm in it too.
Are you?
Yeah.
Well, the thing about Tessa, we got her when I was still living at home. And I worked at the vet clinic at the time. I was going, so like the first 2 years after high school, I stayed in our area and I lived at home. I worked at a vet clinic and I was going to college full time here at our local community college. And it was a really sweet time. But my mom surprised my dad with Tessa as a puppy. And I happened to work at a vet clinic that allowed you to bring dogs as long as they were well behaved. So she was with me for the first year of her life every day. She rode in the car next to me, and she's like laid at my feet all day at the vet clinic. She was a good girl.
She was almost more your dog than anybody else's.
Well,
just the amount of time that you spend.
Just that first year.
Yeah.
But she was such a good girl. Jen Rev said, beautiful. Now I want to get a rose bush for myself and my mom for Mother's Day. Unrelated question. When do you start your water-soluble fertilizer for your annual containers? Well, we just got our annual load in and we fertilize the next day. So we start in immediately, once a week, water-soluble fertilizer.
I think you could go more than once a week if
you're watering every single day.
Yeah,
you can. We don't. Just timing-wise and the amount of fertilizer we'd have to use. Like it just, once a week we find is sufficient. Evelyn said, is there any merit to the belief that we should not plant a new rose in the spot that another rose just died in? Is that a myth? You know what? I've never heard of that. I know that with trees, you're supposed to plant them like 6 feet away from where one had previously died. Just for root competition and room in the soil. But I don't know about roses. I mean, unless you've had something viral, I don't know if the soil harbors that kind of stuff.
Yeah, wonder.
It's possible. You should probably look into that more because I am not a wealth of information on that subject. Mrs. TA said, what does the plant above the Evelyns look like Virginia creeper? It is. Would the roses grow okay that close to whatever is that? Yes. They would. You just have to be on it. That Virginia creeper just popped up on its own.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it's pretty, and they just keep it in check. Virginia creeper for us isn't an invasive weed here like it is in a lot of climates. So it's not something we worry about. We sell it. Like my parents' garden center has it for sale. And I know that like most people
Freak out.
yeah, freak out about that. But just areas are different. Things will thrive here that don't thrive for other people and vice versa. Marina said, what did you have to do to remove the lilac so that the runners wouldn't pop up? I have one in my garden that is no longer in an ideal spot and would love to replace it with a red bud. I'm just worried the runners are going to stick around forever. Any tips would be amazing. Well, when you take it out, we did like for the sumacs, we did that stump out. Is it called stump out, stump remover?
Yeah,
it's like a
something like that.
liquid. Maybe we can find B-roll from that video when we took those sumacs out. We painted that on the trunks, and we've not had a single runner from a sumac. Nothing.
Yeah.
Like it is done. I mean, you could have the trunk or the lilac removed, the trunk ground out, and then any suckers that come up, just paint them with that stuff, and you'll be good to go. Flip Flapulous said, my heart sings every time I see you plant a rose. Is there a reason why you filled the holes with water at your mom's, but not on your property? Because hers were bare root. That we put in, I wanted to make sure that there was a lot of moisture. Also, it helps settle that soil in around the roots. Oftentimes when you're planting something that doesn't already have a root ball, included with soil included around it, you can end up with air pockets. So that water just kind of helps it all pack in there a little bit better. Laura Green said, what a lovely day. My question is about the growing zones. You said yours was changed from a 6 to a 7, but you have doubts about that. We are a 6 here in southwestern Michigan, and your plants and trees are weeks ahead of ours. How are these zones determined? They're determined, I believe, based on an average, like a 10-year average or something like that. When we started our channel, we were a zone 5, and then we were moved to a zone 6, and now we've been moved to a zone 7. But I still am a little gun shy on the whole 7 thing because I think there are microclimates within your area. Yeah. There's a guy who lives right at the bottom of our hill. Like we're all kind of on the top of a hill, and then you go down, and he's right at the bottom. He can plant tomatoes at the first part of April. There's no way I could do that up here. But he's got this little microclimate down in there. And I think that you just have to know your space. And I just don't go off of the USDA because like this winter or last winter, we got -6. The Snowmageddon year, which was 2016, I think, we got down into the negative teens. And I just know it can happen. And if you plant a large amount of things that are a zone 7, and we have the potential very recently, we got into the negatives, that would have killed all of the zone 7 stuff. So I don't know. I'm just a little bit more.
Yeah, I don't understand why it goes off of an average. I feel like it should go off of the coldest temperature that your area has gotten in the last 10 years.
No average needed. Like what is the lowest in the last 10 years? That's the zone you are.
Yeah, because if it got down to that,
then you know you have the potential to get there.
Yeah, that might kill all the things that you planted that, can't take that.
Right.
So I don't really know. I don't understand that whole average thing.
Yeah. So for me, like I planted a cypress behind the fireplace, and I think it's a zone 7. And I'm just very reserved with how many things I'll plant that's a zone 7. Even a zone 6, I'm like, oh, I'm getting a little more comfortable with zone 6 things. Yeah. So that's where we're at with that. MV Catherine said, did you plant the Evelyn roses with the graft under the soil, or are they not grafted? I believe those are grafted, and yes, we plant them right at the graft. Like there's the roots down here, and then there's a stem, and then there's like that little knob with the, with the actual plant. We plant them right up, like the graft is kind of under the soil. It helps them root, like they will create roots along those stems, and it helps them root in better, keeps them from rocking. And I feel like they just look like a better plant, if they're not this huge plant, this huge plant being held up by this long stem, Heidi said, love your mom's arches between the raised beds. Are they cattle panels attached to each other or other? What do they use to attach the parts together? Was thinking of doing something similar between our raised beds. They kind of have a cattle or a ranch panel look to them, but they're stronger. They're made by a guy that sells.
Local man.
Yeah. He comes with his trailer full of, it's like rusted iron sort of art and arbors and beautiful trellises and things, obelisks. And he unloads all of his stuff out in the yard, and then my mom gets to go shop from it. And so it comes from that load. I planted our apple trees for the apple arch on one of those types of arbors, and they just are a little bit stronger than ranch panels. But I like ranch panel looking arches. I do think that you would need to support them, you need to have some stakes, like T-posts or something on either side. So you could lash them, like zip tie them to the T-post so that they've got more strength. Because if you've got a ranch panel arbor and you plant something on it that's heavy, it's going to want to sway it from one side to the other. And it won't keep its nice structure unless you've got something, anchoring it on all the sides. So with these, you don't have to do that because they're strong enough to hold up.
There was some conversation I saw about Grace Rose Farm.
Where I ordered the bare root roses from.
Yeah. And apparently, this is like, we've had a good experience from Grace Rose Farm. We don't work with them.
No, I bought these like a normal, I got online, I ordered them, bought them. Apparently,
some people had some issues in the past with them, like not receiving plants because of whatever, and then having a really hard time getting a hold of Grace Rose Farm. So again, all that information is like secondhand, because we didn't experience it, but it's there, and there's apparently some disgruntled people that didn't have a good experience.
I think you probably find that in any company.
Yeah, you probably can. But anyway, so I guess I'm just like throwing that out there as like information that we learned that we didn't know about.
I'd never heard anything negative.
And also kind of like just throwing it out there that like we're not working with them. So like if they're a great company, great. If they're a horrible company,
they did send us some things once though. It was just like they just sent them. It wasn't it was no deal between us and them. But they sent us some cut roses once that were beautiful. And then they sent us some roses for our rose garden.
Oh.
Yeah.
When we were doing that.
When we did that, yeah. So I do remember getting some from them. We also got some from Heirloom Roses, and then I bought a bunch.
Yeah.
Anyway, but I had a good experience with all of those things. So
yeah.
Next video was a grape tree update, spraying weeds in the lawn. A little more controversy for the comment section, and a little perennial planting. It's so funny. I used to stay away from those kinds of things, but I'm feeling a little emboldened.
Really?
Does age do that to one? Like, do you start like not caring?
It probably does. As you get older, you are maybe a little more like sure of yourself.
Yeah.
And just kind of like, well, I'm just going to do my thing and you can do yours. And
yeah. Like before I would have never, even though it was an organic spray I was using and I do all the caveats and talk about the dandelions and all that business. I don't know. I still would have stayed away from it before.
Yeah.
Just like, don't even talk about it.
How come your husband wasn't out there spraying? I saw
you were
comment.
sick. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, we don't even.
I told you. I was like, as I was sick, I was like, people are going to say, they're going to be like, how come Aaron's not out there doing it?
Well, you want to know something? We don't do it with a backpack sprayer either. I just did it with backpack sprayer because it's what I don't even think most people are using a backpack sprayer. They're using a pump sprayer.
Yeah.
We use a great big tank that we pull behind our gator.
It's not that big. It's like 25 gallons.
Well, it's way bigger than
Yeah.
what I was using. But I just thought, you know what? This is a really good opportunity to show some of you this organic weed spray that works really well for most weeds. And I feel like that's helpful information.
Yeah.
And it needs to be shared. So, and you know what? I liked doing it.
I think the issue that people had was not with the spray, but it was more with just the entire concept of spraying out like removing dandelions. I think those people would have still been upset had you gone out with one of those like weeder tools that you stand on.
And just got rid of them. Yeah.
Like it was the getting rid of the dandelions that
I talked about that though too.
With.
I don't think people maybe people aren't actually watching all the things.
Yeah, they might not be actually.
Or like hearing all my words. But when I was spraying that day, there was not a single pollinator on any one of those dandelions because they have so many more options that are way more palatable.
Yeah.
Dandelions, yes, they are a source of food for honeybees, but they're not the greatest source. They're not the best. Early on in the season, I think I even said this, like early on, if it makes you feel better to leave them out for the honeybees, great, do that. Let them have that early source of food. But once you have other things blooming in your garden around, they will not visit your dandelions, not like they will other things. So if you don't like the dandelions, but you want to feed the bees, like leave them out early, and then you can remove them later when there's other things for the bees to feed on.
Yeah.
It's a win-win, right? And then you get a nice looking lawn.
I just imagine that the people that are the loudest are probably the ones who haven't done anything for bees. Like we've planted so many things.
I know, we've
that
done
the
a
bees
really good
can forage on.
Yeah.
And so, but we have this one area, the lawn, that we don't want dandelions, which,
that's a normal thing, by the way. Most people don't want dandelions in their grass.
But we've done so much to provide bees with other sources of food early in the year. So I'm kind of like really, are we the ones that, and not to say that people were like truly upset.
No, nobody was nasty.
I think most of the time our comment section is like really good.
Yeah. Well, also, we've got that whole Dirtlands area, where the kids and I harvested dandelion flowers. We never spray those out there.
Right.
If the bees want to go eat dandelion pollen or nectar, whatever, they can go out there.
Right.
So we provide with the dandelions too. Okay. Claudia said, Laura, are you going to thin out your grapevines or support them somehow? Looks like your branches won't support the weight of the grapes. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen there. Our grape trees are doing so well, so well that I am a little afraid for their lives. I'm going to have some kind of support network for them until they strengthen up a little bit. They're so young that their branches are pretty flexible yet. So we'll see what happens. I might have to thin them out and just let them do a few clusters of grape this year, as much as that would kill me to have to thin them out. I think it might be easier on the plant that they don't have that much weight. We're just going to have to play that one by ear. Donna said, hello, could you please tell me the name of the second perennial that you started from seed? Oh, anise hyssop. I planted that at the end of the video. Anise hyssop is an amazing perennial. Now, don't judge the perennial based on the way my plants looked. I did not pinch most of them, and they've been languishing in their containers. They need to get out really bad. But once they root in, they just, they bush out really fast, and they are an amazing pollinator plant. So if you want honeybees to love your garden, plant some anise hyssop. Karen said, are the miniature peach and nectarine trees literally miniatures, or are they just able to keep them cut back and pruned to be small? I'm definitely going to try a grape tree. They are amazing. So those are literally miniatures. Usually they top out at about 6 feet tall by 6 feet wide. So they will get quite a bit larger than they are right now. And we can continue to bump them up in size, like container size. I think in that situation, it might be a good idea to employ the whole, container with the broken out bottom that you plant down and let them grow into the ground, but they still look like they're a containerized
It's so permanent, and we move stuff around so much.
I know it, but that would be a good candidate for something like that, or a really giant pot. Angela said, wait, if you get rid of all your dandelions, how you make more of the oh so wonderful ice cream? Yeah, we tried it. All right. So we gave it a shot. Question, we can't get a hold of lawnweed brew in the UK. What would you recommend we look for in the ingredients? So it was an iron, maybe we can put it on the screen because I don't want to say it wrong.
Yeah.
It's something HDTA, something like that. And the deadweed brew is another derivative of iron. They're just and they specifically target. And I showed you in the end, just a number of hours after we were done spraying, what the weeds look like. And the lawn looks amazing this week.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it looks just awesome.
Yeah, it doesn't kill every weed. It's not like...
It doesn't kill bindweed. I did try. I sprayed bindweed, and I went out there, when I was looking at it killed the clover, it killed the dandelions, and I think there was some China lettuce. There were some other things coming up that it killed. The bindweed, it just looked red. It was happy and red from the spray, and it's still growing. So I don't even know that it knocked it back at all.
Yeah.
Sandra said, what's wrong with the clover? We have it and love it. I don't want clover in my grass. My grandparents had clover in their grass when I was little, but I wasn't meant to be in the grass. And we would play on that grass a lot. And I got stung on the bottom of my foot once. And I thought, nope, never. I think that memory has just stuck with me for so long. And I like clean looking lawns.
Sure.
I mean, it's a preference, I guess. Yeah. And I know a lot of people want to replace lawns with clover, which, more power to you. That's the other thing. I'm kind of like a live and let live sort of person.
Yeah.
You do what you want in your garden. And I like to look at it. I think it's interesting and I feel like I can learn from it as well, but it's just not something I want in my grass. Couture Valenci said, girl with a property your size, why aren't you using a trailer sprayer? I was going to, but I wanted to
Well, in your defense, the pump on our thing is broken.
Right.
Paul ordered another one. It'll be fixed here shortly. But that was one of the reasons that they had kind of gotten to this point, is that the pump is broken on our little 25 gallon.
Yeah. I just thought it would be a good opportunity to show you guys one way to do it, I guess.
Well,
Backpack sprayers are handy. Yeah. Tiffany said, is there a product that kills buffalo grass? It keeps spreading every year. Oh, I don't know. I'm going to look on Bonide's website. They've got this, what would you call it, Aaron? Where you can search based on what you're dealing with.
Yeah, lately I've been going in and I just type in
problem solver. Aphids.
They've got a little search bar. I just type in aphids or mites or, whatever.
Oh, I spelled it wrong. I wrote buffalo grass. Okay, let's see. Buffalo grass is not on their list. That's interesting. I don't know. Grasses general, it gives you burnout, which is an organic spray, weed and grass killer. That might work. Bonide has a product called Grass Beater or Over the Top. that's list that that's what came up when I just typed in Google buffalo grass killer. That's the first one. Grass beater over the top. I don't know what the active is in that one. It's not an organic spray though, so keep that in mind. But an over the top grass killer is kind of handy if you've got like ground cover junipers or ground cover or any kind of broadleaf plant that you've got grass growing through. You can spray an over the top sort of spray on the grass. It'll kill the grass, but not the broadleaf. So that's nice. Weed beater ultra. Yeah, I can't speak to like what would actually for sure work because we don't deal with that and I'm not spraying that. So sorry. Alyssa said, I just sheet mulched an existing flower bed that got absolutely wrecked in the droughts of the past 3 years, and there's nut sedge poking through the cardboard less than 2 weeks later. What's the shelf life for dead weed brew or sedge ender mixed with concentrate with the surfactant? Ooh. I plan to mix a small amount in the spray bottle and getting emerging weeds as they pop out to try and get on top of it, or should I mix fresh? I would mix fresh. I mean, if you're using it from one day to the next day, you're probably okay, but if there's any amount of time between, I'd probably mix it fresh. I mean, you're not out anything just to go unload your sprayer. If it's got stuff in it and you've got the time, you can go unload it and it might knock it back some or it might work great. But I know it's most effective if it's freshly mixed. They can tend to separate. So like maybe give your sprayer a little bit of a shake before you unload it. Kimberly said, will the spray deactivate the seed heads of the dandelions or will the wind spread the seeds? I don't know. I did spray the seed heads thinking, well, I'm just doing my best just to hit the whole thing. I think they'll probably still spread. There's not a lot that will take dandelion seeds down.
Yeah.
Okay, next video was huge annual load and some planting in the formal flower garden, and it was a huge annual load.
Yeah.
Like I mean, we pre-order all of this stuff, right? And I just kind of like...
Well, they came and got some of it back.
They did. Now, there was like 30 extra flats and 12 16-inch baskets that I was looking at all this stuff. I'm like, I mean, I know our order's big, but...
I didn't order this stuff.
This stuff doesn't seem like it's something I ordered. It seems like we have too much. Yeah. So it took me a long time. I went through the lists and I verified everything. And then I texted Jennifer and I was like, I think that I've got somebody else's order. I actually called my mom because sometimes our stuff gets mixed up because they'll drop at Andrew's and then they'll drop here or vice versa. Or sometimes they'll drop our stuff together. And I called her and I said, did you order 12 matching hanging baskets that are huge for a customer? And she said, what? No, I didn't. So anyway, the truck turned around and came back and picked those 30 flats and the hanging baskets up. But it was a giant load. I'm so excited about it though, because we're able just to I'm going to go do a project with some of them today at my parents' house. And we get to experiment with lots of different things. And that's one of the fun parts about working with proven winners is, I have a whole section of 2026 annuals that are new for next year. I haven't showed those yet. I'm sure all the information's out there already, but I'll show them to you like in person, what they look like. I guess not in person, but in camera in person. So anyway, yeah, it's super fun. And I just love it. Love going back in there. Lisa said, what in the world is Laura planning with all the red? You'll see. I'm excited about it. She sure was quiet about it during the tour. Can't wait to see. That one I think we'll probably tackle that project toward the end of the week or maybe beginning of next week. So Maya said, it just felt like a garden center tour in and itself. Do you plan first and order your favorites and plan the project? So this year, the only areas that I really plan, there's not that many. There's like the formal flower garden, definitely planned that one. I used to plan the containers along the east fence line. I usually plan something like in any formal area, like Persephone garden, that sort of thing. I plan for those, but largely this year, I just ordered like 5 flats of this, 3 flats of this, 1 flat of this, and knowing like some of my favorites and some of those I wanted to experiment with, knowing that we would need, a certain amount to make an impact.
Yeah.
You can't really plant one, unless it's a Super Genia Vista bubblegum, you can't really plant one annual out in our flower beds and have it be impactful enough to, be something. You have to plant 10 or more.
Unless it's a bubblegum.
If you could plant one bubblegum and you'd get the effect. Kim said, with the play and the blue salvia, do you pinch them off to encourage branching? Nope, they just do it themselves. They're amazing. Barbara said, was that you with your hair up and in a baseball cap? Yes, so cute. I thought Laura wouldn't be unloading the truck, and then I realized it was you. Red flowers too, a day of beautiful flowers and some surprises too. So excited to see where they will all go. That morning was nuts. Okay, so my morning started at 4 a.m. with Samantha at the side of our bed saying, Mama, I have a sliver in my hand. Okay. So I get up and I'm like, with my phone flashlight, trying to get a sliver out of her hand. We've got it taken care of. got her back down to sleep, but she ended up getting into our bed at that point.
Yeah.
And once she gets into bed, which is rare, neither of the kids get into bed with us, hardly ever. But when she does, I'm like, oh, I can feel the heat from her body, and her feet are usually on somewhere on my back, and I just don't sleep very well. So I overslept. We had a piano tuner coming in the morning, and you were sick that day. So I had to handle everything, which is, I didn't mind that at all. But I raced out of bed because I knew I needed to meet the piano tuner downstairs. And I did. I just threw a hat on and clothes on, and I met him at the door, and he started doing his thing, and I made a cup of coffee, and I was just getting ready to take my first sip, and you were like, Moss is here. Moss Greenhouse truck. Okay. So I knew that we had this massive amount of plants to unload. So that was me. And then I went and got ready for the day after that. And it just happened to be one of the days that it was a hair wash night. And I went to bed with my hair wet. And so it was just like, ugh. Susan said, will you please show us how you water them while they are waiting for their summer home in the garden?
Just with a dram water wand.
Yeah, just kind of go along with the hose. The plants that we can get under the canopy, which is not very many of the annuals, but we try not to hit the tops of them if we can. Like the sunflowers, when I water those, I put the wand in the flat, and I water them from underneath because they've got a little bit more of a canopy up top instead of being flat. The flat ones, you just have to water however you can get to them. But yeah, it's pretty straightforward. Just stand there with a water wand. But the one thing that we do that I see other people doing different, I see a lot of people like holding the hose way up and just like doing one of these. That would never hit all of the cans for us. We have to get like the cans are here. We get like right here. And there's like 12 in each flat or 10 or whatever. And so you just move your hose that many times knowing that you've probably made it that, can with enough water. Taylor of Waterdeep said, I get excited on your behalf for the annual arrivals. I was wondering, do you think you and your mom would ever get over to the Chelsea Garden Show? Boy, if it was any other time of year than May.
Yeah.
May is incredibly hard to leave. One, because she's super slammed busy at the garden center. We're busy here. And we don't want to leave in May. Like, that's the fun part of the year, right?
Yeah.
When you're doing all the planting and all of that. Yeah. T from Texas said, I know you said this, but how far apart are the boxwoods and what type are they? They are winter gem boxwoods out in the formal flower garden. And I don't know how far apart we planted them. It's somewhere between 18 and 24 inches, I want to say. I used a stick. I just laid them out based on what I thought, how it looked, and then I cut a bamboo stake that went from pot to pot. And so every one of them, I'd put the stake in between, and then you get exact spacing.
Yeah.
I don't have an exact inch, but it's usually somewhere between 18 and 24. Cho Steck said, I'm so thrilled for you to have all those flowers to work with. Quick question, in areas with perennials and annuals, do you run 2 lines of drip? Nope. One for perennials and one for annuals, or do you just change the amount of emitters? We just change the amount of drip. So like we do less drip around evergreens, less drip around established plants, more drip around perennials than like our larger shrubs. And then definitely want to make sure there's a drip line going by all the annual root balls. So in annual planted areas, the drip lines are usually a little bit closer together. Anand Ravindran said, question, with the geraniums and the Superunia by the Hartley, the height difference between the two plants wasn't much for one to take over the other, but with the salvias, won't they grow too big and smother out the other plant? We'll have to see what happens. I don't know exactly what's going to happen in there. It might be a situation where we end up needing to stake salvias. I don't know. We'll see. Okay, the last group of questions comes from our recap from last week. Buddy said, I have a hydrangea that has beautiful leaves and shape, but in the last 4 years, I've only had one bloom. I've tried many different products and leaving it and also cutting it down. Any suggestions? It depends on what type of hydrangea you have, whether or not it's getting enough sun. They need like 6 to 8 hours of sun at minimum in order to be productive bloom-wise. You might try feeding it with some rose tone, flower tone, holly tone, one of those. Also, if it's a type of macrophylla or serrata hydrangea, if you have deer pressure, if they're eating the buds off, that could remove blooms. If you're pruning it at the wrong time, that can also remove blooms. So those are all things to kind of like check off the list. Gertrude said, have you seen leaf borers on petunias? I'm seeing white lines twisting through those leaves. What do you use for that? Is that the same thing you do for budworms? Yeah, BT should take care of that. Most of the time, I want to say. You could use like a Captain Jack's dead bug, which would take care of your budworms, but it also, I think Captain Jack's is labeled for leaf miners, which are usually a caterpillar type, thing. So BT should work. Yep. Captain Jack's dead bug is an organic spray. It's not as selective though. BT is a selective insecticide where it just will kill caterpillars in that stage. Captain Jack's will kill other things too, so just be careful about when you're using it. Dusk is the best time once pollinators have gone to bed. Happily Retired said, I was wondering if you've had any thrip issues yet. Not that I've noticed. I've been battling them on my citrus trees the last few years and was disheartened to see that they are back. My fruit has just set. No blooms remain. Do you think it's safe to spray? My trees are all very small and only have 4. Usually I don't like to treat once there's fruit, but wondering what you think. I've learned so much for you over the years and trust your opinion. Well, I wouldn't let the thrip issue get worse, for sure. Like if it makes you feel better, I don't know how many citrus you have on there, but you could kind of cover the citrus while you spray the leaves. I mean, not that if you're not using a systemic that's entering the leaf, it's not going to enter the fruit either. So, as long as you're just directing it toward the leaves and use an organic spray labeled for thrips, I would probably do that rather than letting the thrips get worse and possibly affecting other things around them. Karen said, don't you have problems with your chickens eating your plants? Not really, not yet. I mean, we only have 2 that are free ranging at the moment. They do make a mess of mulch. Well, kind of one. One's been broody on and off, but she was out all day yesterday.
I think you're going to have to put them back in once there's like
7 of them.
7 of them.
Probably. What I'm thinking is that we'll just have like a specific time of day I let them out. Like maybe when we're out in the evenings doing our thing, like just we sit on the patio or we go around in the golf cart. We just kind of walk around the gardens. I think if we let them out for just a couple hours, I mean, they could still do some damage to the mulch in that couple of hours, but it'll let them have some time to stretch their legs. And that way they're not out for all day, creating havoc. But they haven't damaged any plants yet. Carol said, I really enjoy your videos. Thank you. Question about the daffodils in the orchard area. You said Aaron mows it less frequently and not until they have all bloomed, but how will the bulbs get enough energy for subsequent years' growth if you mow them down? We just won't mow them down. We'll wait until they start to yellow and die back, and then we'll mow. You've not mowed in there yet this year. And most of our daffodils, well, all of our daffodils are done blooming by a long shot, and they are starting to die back a bit. Carrie said, I'm planning to widen the circles around my trees to remove more grass. I love that look and don't want the trees to compete with the grass for water and nutrients. How big are the circles under your maples along the lane?
We go 2 feet around the trunk, like from the trunk. So as the trunk gets bigger, we keep edging out more and more grass. So there's always 2 feet away from the trunk at every point. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So initially it was roughly 4 foot diameter, and then it grows as the tree grows.
Yeah, 4 foot plus a couple inches maybe.
Right.
Because they were probably like 2 inches. So yeah.
Mindy said, you talked about trimming the suckers from your crab apples. Can you let them grow? Will they produce flowers and fruit? I was gifted a crab apple from my son and the main trunk died. However, it produced 2 suckers, which have grown up 2 feet and have leaves. Will it grow into a tree? Eventually it might. I mean, it's worth a shot if you like that tree where it's at. I would maybe select one of them and just keep one of them and let that one grow into a tree, unless you want a multi-trunk, which that'd be pretty. Don Kime said, talking water emitters, have you ever tested them to see if they actually emit what they are rated?
No, I never have. I should.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I could do that really easily with a zone, like have a couple buckets and put in a 4 gallon per hour emitter, a 2, a 1, a half, and just see how much drips. Like run it for an hour and see. That'd be an interesting test.
Yeah, it would be. Megan said, does the sucker punch product affect the mother plant? I would like to try on my trumpet vine that is coming up everywhere. No, it doesn't. It just takes care of the suckers. It's never affected a mother plant that I've used the product on the suckers on.
Was it sucker punch that we used or stump out?
Well, for the sumacs, it was the stump out. Yeah. Sucker punch is different.
Because you're trying to kill the mother plant.
Right. Sharon Johnson said, will you be planting your dahlias this year? Yeah, I was just thinking about that yesterday. I have a crate full of dahlia tubers in the root cellar. And as far as I can tell, they've wintered over great. I did the whole cellophane, dividing them in the fall rather than in the spring and wrapping them in cellophane. And I think they're largely great in there. I got to figure out where to put them. I've been a little bit about the whole cut flower garden situation this year. I think swapping it over to a formal flower garden has kind of changed my thought process, I guess, about that space. And I don't know.
It takes up a lot of your time. I mean, a lot of the projects that you did in the cut flower garden were really
time intensive.
And so I don't know.
I feel like this year I'm a little bit more focused on let's get that front flower bed done. Let's button up some areas. I don't know.
Are you going to plant between the Hartley and the house?
Yeah, I want to do that. Those are the kinds of things that I'm more into this year. I feel like I do a certain idea for a certain amount of years and it just kind of runs its course. And I need to re-energize myself to want to do that again. But I do have a bunch of things started. They need to go somewhere. We'll figure it out. You guys, that is it. That was the last question on our recap for today. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys are all having a great day and a great Mother's Day, and we will see you in the next video. Bye.